afternoon, math students. We are going to get started with our next learning goal. We're going to talk about learning goal 2.3. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to add and subtract decimal numbers by whole numbers and decimals. Your vocabulary for this lesson is addend, sum, minuend, subtrahend, and difference. Why don't you go ahead and pause the lesson right now, write down your learning goal, and write down the vocabulary. All right, here we go. We're going to go through the steps for adding decimals. Now, I'm going to go through all 5 of them right now, and then I'll slowly take you through slides going through each one. So you can either pause your video now and write them all down, or you can write them down as we go. When you are adding numbers with decimals, adding in general, you should notice that we have 2 addends here, and our answer to an addition problem is called a sum. The steps for adding decimals are: you want to write the problem vertically, you line up the decimals, you want to fill in any missing places with a 0, you add up the place value columns, and you just make sure your decimal is in the sum lined up with the way you set it up vertically. Let's go through this problem. So if we have the problem 6.2 plus 0.03, or 6 2/10 plus 3/100, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to be writing the equation vertically. The first thing you have to notice is where your decimal places are. You want to make sure they are lined up over each other. In this case, I'm going to do my 6.2, put my decimal there, and my 0.03 like that. You can see that my decimals are right over the top of each other, and I have numbers in almost all of my other place value columns. What you want to do next is you are going to add zeros for placeholders. You can see in the 1 column we have a digit in both columns, or in both places. In the tenths we do, but when you get to the hundredths we do not have a digit in our hundredth spot on the top. So we are going to put a 0 in as a placeholder, and then we can go ahead and add. So when we're adding, we can go through, and 0 plus 3 is 3, 2 plus 0 is 2, 6 plus 0 is 6. So you just add down the columns, starting with the farthest right, just like you do when you add any other number. Let's go ahead and do this one together. So we have 45 plus 7/100. So we're going to follow our steps. The first step is to rewrite the equation vertically, lining up the decimal points. The first thing you have to realize is that 45 can also be written as 45, and it can be written as 45.0. So I'm going to put my decimal place in, add my 45.0, and then I'm going to take my other number, which is 0.0, my other addend, look at the decimal place, put my decimal, and add the rest of my numbers. I want to look to see if there are any place values that are missing something, and I can see that right here, here, and here. I need to add my zeros, and then I add, starting with the farthest right-hand column. 0 plus 7 is 7, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0. Need to make sure my decimal gets in the correct spot. 5 plus 0 is 5, 4 plus 0 is 4. And my answer is 45 and 7/1000. Now, some of you might say, well, I could have done that without lining it up. You do want to get used to lining it up as the numbers get more complicated, to be used to being able to do that. All right, so I want you to try this problem, pause it, do this problem, line it up, and then we'll correct together. All right, so when you line this up, 25 and 67/100 would have gone there with the decimal right there. 24 and 1,112 10,000ths goes underneath. Your decimals are lined up. You'll notice that we need to add some zeros into our placeholders because we do not have a 0 in either of those places. And you want to go through and add. So if we add, we have our 0 plus 2 is 2, 0 plus 1 is 1, 7 plus 1 is 8, 6 plus 1 is 7, 5 plus 4 is 9, and 4 plus 2 plus 2 is 4. Just like with any other addition problem, if we would have had to do any other carrying, we would have done that. Okay, what I want you to do is go ahead and look at these problems, write them down, bring them in tomorrow, showing all of your work for each of these 4 problems. So pause the video now and write them down. All right, now we're going to get into subtracting decimals. If you look at decimals, the numbers used in decimals are different from addition. When you subtract, the first number you are subtracting is called your minuend. That is your initial numbers. You are then subtracting what is called the subtrahend, and the answer is called the difference. You're going to want to know those words in case you see them sometime in print: minuend, subtrahend, and difference. The steps are very similar to adding. You're going to first write the problem vertically. You want to line the decimals up. You're going to fill in any missing places with a 0. You want to subtract the columns, being sure to notice any 0. And this is critical, and I'll talk about this in a second. And you want to make sure your decimals in the subtrahend is lined with your setup. So let's look at our first problem. We have 7.8 minus 2.03. We're going to write the equation vertically, and we want to line up the decimal points. So just like we did with addition, we notice the decimal points. We're going to do 7.8 minus 2.03. So we have our decimals lined up. The next thing we want to do is look and see where our zeros should go. And when you look at this, each place value has a digit with the exception of this. One thing you want to be very, very careful of, and this is a mistake that lots of kids make, is they tend to put nothing in that spot since it's blank. And then what they'll say is, oh, 3 minus nothing, or nothing minus 3 is 3, 8, oops, we're subtracting, yeah, and 7 minus 2 is 5. The problem with that is there is technically not nothing there. There is a 0 there. And so you have to do your borrowing. This is technically 0 minus 3. You need to go over here and borrow your 7 and make that a 10. And now you have 10 minus 3, which is 7. 7 minus 0, which is 7. And 7 minus 2, which is 5. So it is really, really important that you fill in those 0 placeholders when you subtract. All right, let's try this one. Again, we have our 32 as a whole, and it can be rewritten as that. So we're going to put our decimal, 32.0, and then we'll put our number underneath, our subtrahend down. And then we cannot forget to put in our placeholder zeros. So when we do that and we have 0 minus 3, I can't take from there, I can't take from there, I can't take from there. So that becomes a 1, that becomes a 10. So actually that would become a 10. Which would then be a 9, that would be a 10, which then would be a 9, and so there we have our 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 0 is 9. 9 minus 0 is 9. And we have our 1 minus 0 is 1, and our 3 minus 0 is 3. This step is really, really important when you are subtracting across zeros. You cannot just take this and put it here. You're technically exchanging from here to here, and then here to here, and then here to here to get that into a 10, which leaves you with 9 and 9. If you have additional questions about that, please write this down as a note to bring to class tomorrow. All right, why don't you go ahead and try this problem, and then pause the video, and then we'll correct. All right, welcome back. Let's go ahead and solve. We would have our 17 and 200ths. Line this up. 8 over 5. Fill in there. Oops, subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2. 0 minus 5, I can't do 0 minus 5. That becomes a 6. That becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 6 minus 8, I need to borrow from there. That becomes 16. 16 minus 8 is 8. One of the things you should make sure that you do, besides putting the decimal places, is after you're done, double check to make sure it makes sense. In this case, 8 plus 8 is close to 17, so I know I'm on the right track. That would give you right away, let you know if you didn't do the problem correctly. Okay, here are 4 more problems. Go ahead and solve these problems in your notebook. Make sure you bring all your work and bring it to class tomorrow. We'll correct right away in the morning and we'll see how you're doing. See you then.